You are one bad financial decision away from becoming the person you promised yourself you would never be. And the terrifying part is this: most of the damage does not arrive like a meteor. It creeps in through common sense purchases, safe loans, and everyone does it investing tricks that quietly drain your future. This is not financial advice, this is financial education. And in 2026, the rules of money are harsher than any lesson your parents taught you. Inflation may have cooled on paper, but your purchasing power still took a hit. Your job security is thinner because AI is removing entire categories of work. Housing has detached from wages so hard that a whole generation is learning how to rent for decades. And the wealth gap keeps widening because the system rewards people who already own assets, not people who are trying to survive. Over the next minutes, I want to walk you through the things you should not do in the current year and the next 3 years, not as vague advice, as direct, painful patterns that show up right before people get buried under debt, scams, and regret. If you recognize yourself in any of this, good. That means you still have time to stop digging. First, let's talk about the most expensive lie modern life sells you: that everyone needs to buy a home, especially in your 20s, especially when you think you're behind, especially when your friends start posting moving photos as if it is proof of success instead of proof of leverage. They sell you home ownership like it is adulthood. But the truth is uglier. Banks do not make money because they believe in your dreams. Banks make money because they originate loans, sell some of the risk, hold some of the risk, and profit from the interest. Home becomes the product, and you become the buyer they need. And like every great sales strategy, they build a story that makes you feel irrational for questioning it. Here is the key mechanism nobody wants to say out loud. In many markets, a house is not a wealth machine, it is a debt machine. You do not just buy an asset, you buy a monthly payment that never stops unless you default. You also buy a lifestyle lock that makes you less flexible when layoffs hit, when medical problems hit, when AI transforms your job before you are ready. Picture a 36-year-old nurse named David. He works hard. He did overtime during the pandemic because he was heroic, not because he was strategic. He saved what he could. Then he saw rates drop and he told himself, finally, this is the moment. He bought a home outside the city because it was cheaper. 2 years later, his employer reshuffled departments, and the role he relied on got reduced by automation and new scheduling software. His income tightened, his mortgage did not. Then repairs arrived in waves: HVAC, roof, plumbing. Every emergency was paid for with savings that were never supposed to be used. He thought the problem was his budgeting. It was not. The problem was timing plus leverage. He had turned life uncertainty into a permanent financial obligation, and in 2026, with interest rates still elevated compared to the ultra-low years, that kind of mistake becomes a trap that tightens whenever the economy gets weird. Now some of you will say, but prices go up over time. That is the old story. It assumed stable demographics, stable consumer confidence, and stable credit conditions. It assumed younger people would keep forming households the way they did in the past. It assumed the behavior of demand would not change. But demand has changed. In the United States, the housing affordability crisis is not just a headline. According to Federal Reserve research on housing and affordability, the share of income required for housing has remained stubbornly elevated since the rapid price increases after 2020. And across many countries, including the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia, wages did not rise fast enough to match the jump in home prices. So you get a permanent separation. House prices behave like something controlled by capital, while wages behave like something controlled by labor. When you detach prices from wages, you do not create home ownership. You create waiting rooms. You create renters who become permanent unless policies intervene or incomes catch up. You create a generation that does not see a mortgage as liberation. They see it as a cage. And the most dangerous part is the way the narrative gets sold to young people. They are told to take the plunge because if you wait, you lose. But waiting is not laziness. Waiting is risk management. Waiting is refusing to sign a 30-year contract during a period when the underlying assumptions are changing. If you are thinking about buying a home right now, stop and ask the question nobody asks at the closing table. What happens to you if your income drops while your payment stays fixed? What happens to you if you need to relocate for work but you cannot because selling costs and transaction fees are brutal? What happens if a repair hits at the same time as a health event? Now for the cliffhanger. Because the home story is only the first trap. The second trap is what people do after they buy or try to buy. They keep playing the same high-risk game with money they cannot afford to lose, which brings us to the next thing you must not do in the current year and the next 3 years. Treat the stock market like a place where individuals can just learn their way into easy gains. Let me say this plainly. The stock market is not a lottery, and it is not a fair fight. It is a business environment designed for professionals to win more often than amateurs. And in 2026, that advantage is not just about information. It is about machine speed, data models, and aggressive order execution. Here is what most people misunderstand. They think the market is moved by news. The market is moved by expectations. Professionals do not wake up and check headlines. They run systems that ingest data, estimate scenarios, and adjust positions continuously. They are not simply picking stocks. They are managing risk across portfolios, hedging exposures, and reacting faster than you can blink. And then there is the collective tragedy. When big players sell, you are often the last to hear it. The timing gap is brutal. Institutional investors can offload positions quietly through internal flows, option strategies, and structured selling. You see, a dip after the decision is already made. Now I want you to connect this to your 2026 reality. AI is not only replacing job tasks, it is replacing the average person's ability to compete in information markets. The average retail investor in 2026 does not just compete against a human trader, they compete against algorithms that learn your behavior patterns. They compete against models that can process market microstructured data at speeds most people cannot even conceptualize. The result is simple. You end up paying for education you will never use, or you end up making emotional trades because you think you are investing instead of speculating. And yes, I am going to use numbers because feelings are not a currency. In many years, the majority of individual investors underperform after fees and taxes. Industry analysts and academic research have repeatedly found that retail investors on average earn lower returns than professionals largely because of timing and behavior. It is not that every person loses, it is that the game is structured so the winner set is not you. Now, here is where your arrogance becomes the mechanism. Most people do not buy stocks with money they can afford to lose. They buy with money they cannot lose, and they justify it with optimism. They tell themselves they are being patient while they are actually trapped, and the market does not need to crash for you to lose. It only needs to fail to bail you out. If you are buying on leverage, or you are rotating between hype sectors, or you are loading up because someone on social media said the next 10 times move is coming, you are not investing. You are feeding the machine that profits from your urgency. In 2026, urgency is a commodity. Influencers sell you urgency because urgency spreads faster than accuracy. They show screenshots, they show fantasy portfolios. They never show the months where you were down and forced to sell, because those months do not create engagement. The algorithm rewards dramatic outcomes, not survival. And here is the pattern interrupt, because it is going to sound offensive. You are not being betrayed by some evil villain. You are being harvested by incentives that exist in plain sight. Your greed is the entry point. Your need for quick wins is the hook. The professionals know it, and the market gives them the stage to benefit when you react slowly and buy emotionally. You should also understand one thing about financial certainty. Every scam in every era tries to sell stability while hiding the risk. That leads directly into the next thing you must not do. Chase scams dressed up as high-yield safety, or gamble your future into schemes that promise miracles. This is where people break in two categories. First, there are scams that target older people. They use the language of guaranteed principal, guaranteed returns, safe interest. They often look official. They might even involve a trusted community leader. They sell safety because older people have one thing scammers cannot easily steal: time. So the scam feels like a way to protect time. Second, there are scams that target younger people. They sell upside. They sell speed. They sell the idea that you can flip your life in one cycle. They use phrases like passive income, instant withdrawal, no risk, and they often attach it to platforms you do not control. Now, in 2026, the scam ecosystem has evolved. Crypto used to be sold as freedom from institutions. Then regulation tightened, and institutions adapted. In many cases, banks and licensed financial entities ended up with more access and more control over crypto rails than the average person. So the dream of decentralized independence got replaced by centralized intermediaries with better lawyers. Retail investors still get hit, but now they get hit through different doors. You will see platforms claiming they are decentralized while quietly relying on custodians. You will see promises of staking returns without transparent disclosures. You will see tokens built on marketing while the liquidity is thin. And the moment people try to cash out, the exits are not really exits. They are delays, they are account freezes, they are maintenance, they are new requirements. Remember the scam logic from the classic playbook. It is always the same step-by-step trap. Small payout early to build trust, then bigger deposits required, then withdrawals become harder, then the operators disappear when enough money is collected. Now I want to talk about the emotional psychology because it is more important than the technical details. Scammers are not only stealing money, they are stealing your judgment. They do it by creating a short feedback loop. You put money in, you see a quick reward, you conclude the system works. You then move from maybe to this must be real. But real financial systems are not supposed to feel like slot machines. If it feels too smooth, too easy, too quick, it is not a financial opportunity. It is a transfer of money from your pocket to someone else's balance sheet. And since we are in 2026, connect this to a wider economic reality. Global debt is over $300 trillion worldwide. When debt expands faster than productivity, financial stress builds. That stress does not show up equally. It shows up where individuals are most vulnerable: in housing affordability pressure, in job insecurity, and in the retirement cliff. That is why scam patterns spike during economic fear. People want answers, and they want relief. Scammers provide stories that mimic relief. Now, cliffhanger. Because even if you avoid scams and stop gambling, there is still one behavior that quietly ruins more lives than people admit. It is the behavior you practice every time you say yes to someone else's financial risk. Do not lend money to anyone in the current year and the next 3 years, not friends, not family, not just this once, not even when they have a good story. Especially then. I know what you are thinking. You are thinking about loyalty. You are thinking about compassion. You are thinking about how you would want someone to help you if you were in trouble. But lending is not compassion. Lending is taking responsibility for another person's uncertainty. Most people who borrow from friends do not treat the relationship like a loan agreement. They treat it like a moral debt. They turn your generosity into leverage over you. Then when you ask for repayment, they do not respond with gratitude. They respond with tension. If you press, they accuse you. If you stay silent, they disappear. And the worst part is this: even when they swear they will pay you back, their urgency becomes your trap. They are asking because they cannot get funded elsewhere, and that usually means something is wrong with either the plan or their capacity to repay. Here is a micro story. Picture a young professional named Maya, 31, working in customer success. She has a stable salary, but her rent has risen, and she is trying to build an emergency fund because she learned the hard way that unexpected expenses are not unexpected anymore. Then a cousin asks for money to cover business startup costs. It is not a tiny amount. It is enough to drain Maya's buffer. The cousin promises it will be paid back quickly, with profits included. Maya says yes. She tells herself she is supporting family. Months pass. The payments do not arrive. She checks messages and gets delayed responses. Then one day the cousin posts a smiling photo about new opportunities, and Maya realizes something brutal. The money is not about a business problem. It is about a personal pattern. And then the relationship changes. Not dramatically. It decays. It becomes awkward. It becomes cold. Maya is not just out cash. She is out trust. Now let's link this to 2026. Your buffers are already thinner because cost of living pressure did not magically reverse. Your savings account is not growing because interest rates changed, but prices did not stop climbing in every category. When you lend to someone else, you are turning your emergency fund into their working capital. So here is the rule that will feel cold, but it is how you survive. If someone needs money, you do not lend. You either help in a way you can afford to never recover, or you do not help at all. Lending is recovery-based hope. It is not charity. And if you still feel the pull to help, consider a different approach. If the person is truly running a real opportunity, ask for transparency. Ask for documents. Ask for a realistic plan with measurable outcomes. But do not confuse a pitch with a business. And do not confuse family with sound risk management. Now we have 3 traps identified: the home lie, the market casino illusion, and the lending trap. But there is one more, and this is where the script gets darker, because it connects to the retirement crisis and your future freedom. Do not blow your money on luxury consumption you cannot sustain, and do not tie your dignity to a purchase that requires future debt. In 2026, the luxury trap is not about buying a fancy watch. It is about buying status with money you do not have, then trying to outrun the consequences. A lot of people are stuck in the car payment treadmill. A lot of people are stuck in the upgrade cycle. A lot of people are stuck financing lifestyle because their identity depends on it. They buy things because they think it is progress, even while their real progress is shrinking. Meanwhile, the retirement reality is getting worse. Social Security funding gaps have been discussed for years. Retirement ages have been nudged upward, pensions underfunded, employer plans are fragile, and demographic pressures are not a rumor. The population is aging in many countries, which means fewer workers supporting more retirees. You can feel it in labor